What's up, everybody? How's it going? It's Coach Edwards here. How's it going? Oh, man, this is good stuff. All right, good stuff. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Lacrosse Goalie Wednesday. I hope you're not looking at my nose too much. I got the camera a little bit low. I just realized maybe I can shrink my seat down. Hi to Otis in the background. For those of you guys who are watching me live on YouTube and on Facebook, if you're listening to me on iTunes or on the podcast, if you're listening to me late, whatever, hello. Drive safe. If you're on the way to practice, good luck today. Listen, I just wanted to say a big shout out to everybody. It's weird. Even though it's August 12th, it feels like it's the end of summer. A lot of people, lacrosse ended this past week. If you're still playing, if you've got a tournament this weekend, if you're still late, leave a comment. Let me know what's going on. If you are done for the year, if you're done, let me know. And now you're just waiting for school to start. Because I know that's coming on too, but now there's a lot of, it's weird. It's a lot of weird times. Like, let me know, are you starting? Are you online schooling? Are you where you are, what's it going to be? I was reading on CNN today. I bounce around through all the different news sites. I like to give myself a pretty broad view of what's going on and what people are doing. So I'll be on CNN, I'll be on Forbes, I'll be on Drudge Report. I'll even check out the crazy stuff on the right and the left to find out what's going on, just to give myself some knowledge. And, I saw Sanjay Gupta, the Dr. Sanjay Gupta, or Sanjay Gupta, talk about how he lives just outside of Atlanta, and they're online schooling. So I'd be curious to know what's going on where you are, what your plan is with your goalie, with your athlete, with your family. I hope that, I just want everybody to be safe. But right now, college football is moving things to the spring. I have no idea what that's going to do for lacrosse in the spring. I'm just, it's still up in the air. And so for those of you that have goalies and you're listening to me now, or you're listening to me later, if I could just give you a big coronavirus hug, I would. Give your goalie a big coronavirus high five, I would. Yeah, so I'm happy you're here. So if this is the first time you're listening to me, I'm Coach Edwards. I run lacrossegoalietips.com and lacrossegoalieuniversity.com. It's the longest running lacrosse goalie blog on the planet. We've got a few thousand people in our community, and I coach goalies from around the country through my Lacrosse Goalie University. So I'm kind of the OG of virtual lacrosse goalie coaches. I've been doing this for a really long time. From Boston, I live in Canada, and I work with goalies across the spectrum, from goalies who are, Division I, all the way down to kids who are just trying to make their local program. So I have a pretty unique perspective on this, and we're going to talk about it today, because this is a weird time. So if you're watching me, do me a favor, leave me a comment, leave me a like, a plus, a quick little whatever. It would sure be great to see you guys, and yeah, it's kind of what keeps us going. So if you're in, just leave me a little like. So today we're going to talk about, basically what now, right? So summer has kind of ended. So even if you're still playing, like, this will be good for you in a couple of weeks. If you, summer's over, what are you gonna do about school sports? A lot of our goalies play like football and soccer, and now that's kind of up in the air depending on where you live. I'm a little concerned that school is going to start and then it's going to end quickly. We'll have like one kid sick, like what's going on in Georgia. Like, they started school and then all of a sudden like 25 teachers are out or whatever. So, but who knows what to believe here or there. So I think only until we get people back into school, into your school, will you really know what's going to go on and what's going to happen. So I'm going to talk about, if you've got a goalie who's committed and they want to be a really good goalie, and they're waiting to play, in the spring, and now you're just holding on, we're going to talk about what to do. Okay. If your goalie is deciding, like, let's say, it's the end of your season and you're trying to decide what club team to play with next year, we're going to talk about that as well. And also I'm going to talk about what to work on athletically, right? Because for some of these who are new to my work, I also run a website called athletespecific.com. And so my core business is where I work with athletes in a variety of sports, from the Olympic and professional level all the way on down, on kind of mental performance and strategic athletic planning and things like that. So this is really my wheelhouse when it comes to making athletes better. And also, I pride myself on the fact that I don't just talk to the athlete, I'm talking to the family, because raising an athlete is it's a family thing. Okay. It's a family thing. So, hey there, Curtis George, good to see you. Jonathan Redford, good to see you. People are checking in. This is really cool. Tyler Stores in, I think. But good stuff here. So, the first thing we do with an athlete at the end of a season, at the end of an off season, at the end of a quarter, wherever that quarter may fall for you, depending on the sport or the season, it's time to assess. Okay. And so one of the things that I do with my athletes is, and my families, because it's a family deal, is like, listen, you know, at the end of a season, it's time to assess. We never really want to assess in the middle of a season, because that's when emotions get in. Like, you know, for those of you guys can relate to this, like your athlete starts playing and they're a couple weeks into a season and things aren't going as well as they were anticipating. And then they just want to quit, or they're done, or they hate the team, or they hate the coach, or whatever. I think it's really important that when you commit to a season, you commit to that season. Okay. And so, and you commit to that coach, and you commit to that team, and any difficulty your athlete may be having, or you may be having as a parent involved with a program, you've got to really look back and go like, did I do my due diligence about this team, about this season prior to the season? Because if you do that and you kind of know what to expect, and you take that time to really go, all right, you know what, this team is going to be, you know, pretty weak, or that coach, you know, this is what we know about the coach, or, you know, we don't know this about the coach, or whatever. I really encourage all my families to, especially if you have a goalie, to get with the coach prior to the season and find out what's going to go down. Like, what's the deal? Are you splitting time? Are you the only goalie? Are there 12 goalies? Like, what's it going to be? Are they bringing in goalies from another program that you may not know about just yet? And I'll talk about that as we get into the club idea here in a second. But the thing that you want to understand is you really want to be proactive going into the season, so that during the season, things go fairly smoothly, so that when the end of the season comes, you can go like, all right, listen, we gave it our best shot. And this summer obviously was weird. You know, people were scrambling to play whatever they could. You know, some of my goalies didn't get a chance to play at all, and had to be really creative in how they play and compete and all that stuff. So others got in like 6 tournaments in like 4 weeks or whatever. It was kind of nuts. So, but it's time to assess. And so how do you assess? Well, here's the thing. In this group, and the people listening to me, there's 3 kind of categories of goalies that I work with. One is your goalie's awesome. You know it. They've got big dreams, and you are like, it's full steam ahead, and your goalies, you know, knows what they want, whether that's Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, or it's this, you know, it's the next year's club team or whatever. Your goalie is a stud or studette, and you know it. That's the first tier. Okay. The second kind of category of goalies is, you know, you're good. Your goalie's good. They're okay. They've got stuff to work on, and you know that, but you're comfortable. Like, things are just kind of chugging along. Totally cool. The third category of goalie that I work with is like, you're holding on for dear life. You know, you just want like some little sign of hope, because you don't want your goalie to quit. Okay. And that can happen at every level, by the way. I've had that happen at the collegiate level. Like, I had a goalie last year, a Division 3 goalie, was super pumped to get on campus, and got part of the season in. But when the season started, they got looked over. They weren't totally in the best shape. They got looked over. It was kind of crap. The goalie just said, I'm done. Which I always find is really weird, because, again, like I say, like, I really want my goalies to commit to the season. Okay. But those are the 3 categories of goalies, right? The awesome goalies, the goalies that are kind of in the middle, and then the goalies that are just kind of holding on for dear life. And that's fine too. All right. So we have all of those types of goalies in this group, by the way, if you're listening to me. And so I just want you to know that you're not alone, right? You're not alone no matter where your goalie is. Okay. So the first little controversial thing I'm going to tell you today is this, is that if you've ended your season and you're having a conversation about like politics, or that coach played favorites, you know, I have a saying that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, rubs a lot of people the right way, and it's this, is that there is no politics in sport. There are just athletes not good enough to make the decisions easy for coaches. Fair enough? Okay. So let me say that again. There's no politics in sport. There's just athletes who are not good enough to make the decisions easy enough for coaches, right? Because if you were, I tell this to my athletes, like your goal is to be so damn good, they have to pick you. That's the deal. You have to be so damn good, they have to pick you, right? Now, if they're not picking you for whatever reason, you're just not good enough, okay? And when you start to think like, oh, we should play on another team, or I should be looking for another coach, or whatever, that coach is crap, or like whatever, that's really, that's a victim mentality, right? It's like, oh, it's not me, I'm fine, my goalie's fine, it's the coach who's the problem. Well, go ahead, you can constantly be chasing and doing things like that, that's fine. But really at the end of the day, you've got to basically, your goalie has to be better. Okay. So I just want to start by saying that, because when it comes to assessing your goalie and giving them the best chance to move forward, the thing to do is to look critically and go, what about my game is holding me back? Right. And if I was so damn good and they had to pick you, what would that look like? Okay. What would that look like? So, so when we assess a goalie, or we assess an athlete in general, we're really breaking it down to the 3 key abilities. Okay, so if you go to my website at athletespecific.com and you just search for 3 key abilities, I've got a video up about that. If you want to go a little deeper on this topic, but basically the 3 key abilities are this: physical ability, technical ability, and tactical ability. Okay, so as you look back on this season and you look at your goalie, the first thing you want to look at is their physical ability. Like, are they physically strong enough to be playing at a high level, right? Or the next level, right? So one of the things that I pride myself as a coach is this idea of like, my job is to work with the inventory in front of me and make each one of them better so that they get to the next level in the context of the program I am running, right? This is what usually gets people, okay? Because as parents, we want the coach to be, it's crazy. We ask so much of our coaches, right? We want them to be technically proficient. We want them to understand strength and conditioning. We want them to understand like childhood development. We want them to be like a math teacher, a history teacher, an English teacher. We want them to be like the priest, the minister, the guidance counselor, and to teach our sport all in one. Whereas like when you go to like your math class, you're just hoping for math, right? That's it. So we ask so much of our coaches. So I want you to know that your job is to get your athlete as good as possible so that your coach can give them what they're best at, which is the technical understanding of a sport or the tactical aspect of their sport, okay? But so physically, you've got to look at your goalie and go, listen, all right, is my goalie, maybe your goalie is just undersized because they're a late bloomer, okay? And because they're undersized, they're getting scored on in the top 2 feet of the cage, right? Well, that's something where you just got to walk away and go like, listen, I'm just waiting for him or her to have a growth spurt, right? This last year, I had a goalie that I worked with, and she was 80 pounds at 14 years old. I mean, the girl's tiny, right? And so, but mom or dad are like normal size, and we're just waiting for her to kind of grow, because we know when she gets that growth spurt, lots of things are going to change. Okay. And so we want your goalie to be physically ready. So we can't do much about size, but we can do a lot about strength. And so what we can do there is we can, get our kids in either not just another sport, but get them around a strength and conditioning coach. Okay. A qualified strength and conditioning coach that can make them stronger physically, right? Technical ability. Okay. The technical ability for a goalie is like, do they understand the language of lacrosse? Okay. Now I'm going to show you a video here in a second from the PLL championships this weekend, because I'm going to show you how even at the best goalies don't spend enough time learning the language of lacrosse. Okay. But your goalie, no matter where they are, you know, when we look at the 3 keys to making any save, did they see the ball? Did they know where it's going? Did they move in front of the ball properly? Well, that's where you can break down every goal that goes in on your goalie, and your goalie should be doing that homework, like understanding, like, oh, why did this goal go in? You know, what did I do? Did I see it? Did I know where it's going? And that know where it's going part is really the language of lacrosse. This is why I don't recommend any drill that really takes away the shooter, like the act of someone shooting a ball, right? So I don't do one-handed ball toss drills. I don't do stupid step drills picking balls off of cones. I don't do tennis racket drills. Unless I'm like working with a very advanced goalie and I need to entertain them, I need to spice things up a bit, then maybe I'll add those things. But for the most part, you know, your goalie needs to understand the language of a shooter. And when you take that away, well, you're really missing, you know, you're missing out teaching them the very critical aspect of lacrosse. So you know, to use that language analogy, it's like teaching a kid a language and only teaching them nouns, right? And not verbs, right? It's like, how the hell are you going to make a sentence if all you know is nouns, right? Right. So you've got it. The goalie needs to understand the entire language. And so you've got to look on that. So when you look back on this season, you know, let's say your goalie was in a game and they got scored on by something that was rather creative, you know, and this video I'm going to show you in a second is rather creative. But we're seeing more creativity in the sport of lacrosse. And because of the internet, because of Instagram and video and YouTube and things like that, we're now seeing, like, you know, more and more creativity easily accessible. And kids are now able to go in their backyard and try those things. Well, is your goalie ready for that? When you look back on the season and you go like, oh yeah, we lost that one game to that one team. And, you know, my goalie, she got scored on like 4 times in the half. And it was by that one girl who had that wicked shot, like whatever, you know, those are technical things, you know? And so if your goalie lacks technical ability, well, that's going to help dictate like what you do now in the off season. Right. So let me show you this video talking about, and Suzanne Ridinger writes, hey, Suzanne, how's Amy doing? How's the hamstring? Okay. We want them to come to practice every practice. Yes. Yes. We want them to come. So yeah, we want our goalies to come to practice every practice and be like ready to go, as physically ready to go. Okay. A rising tide raises all ships. That's the way I say it. And I want our goalies to come to practice ready, protected. I want them to be ready to go, because they make the shooters better, and the goalies make shooters better. Shooters make teams better. Teams make leagues better. Better leagues make better players, and it all trickles down. We get better sport of lacrosse. That's the deal. Okay. So here's the video. Let me see if I can do this. Is this gonna work? Oh, here we go. Bear with me, guys. There we go. All right. Can I make this full screen? What'll happen? Oh, look at that. Okay, here we go. So this was like the second or third goal that the Chaos scored. And now listen, if you've got a female goalie, I want you to watch this. Okay, I don't want, one of the things that I got a comment this week privately, said like, I wish I talked more about girls. Listen, for the most part, women's lacrosse goalies and men's lacrosse goalies, they're aspiring to be almost the same athlete. Okay, so if you've got a female goalie and I'm showing you a goal from the men's lacrosse like highlights, like don't think that it's not time to listen. Okay, you want the coaches? Suzanne Ridinger wants the coaches to show up to practice. Suzanne, that's a whole other ball game. That's a whole other thing. But let's watch this video here. Okay, so let's talk about creativity. So the Chaos players in red, for those of you that might not have seen the game, the Chaos players in red. Now watch, he's going to split dodge. Now the stick is in his left hand. Okay, the stick is in his left hand, and he gets all hung up here. Like Burns hung up on Warner. The defenseman here is sliding. And one of the things, I'll be honest, guys, in terms of tactics, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, if your goalie has played on a bad team this year defensively, and they've given up a lot of bad shots, that is not necessarily your goalie's fault. All right. But it does raise the level of shot quality. Okay. And so if your goalie has seen a lot of high quality shots this year and they're getting, you got to know that, right? Your goalie's got to know, like, wow, like in this PLL final, I did this quick little map. Like if you guys have my cheat sheets, right? I didn't even get a chance to print out my cheat sheets. I just took a piece of graph paper and I was mapping out where the goalies got scored on during this final. So this is Riordan's getting shot on, right? The arc in PLL, this is the arc, and so it's basically 15 yards, right? And basically every like 6 goals on Blaise Riordan got scored on basically within like 6 yards from the right side. So anyway, so this shot, okay, let's continue here. So he ducks under. This is great. This is beautiful. This is a horrible slide by the defense, by the way. The defense should have just run him over and taken a penalty, but he probably wouldn't have gotten a penalty because the Byrne's spinning. But Byrne drops his stick underneath, spins between, but now the stick is still in his left hand, but he's on side left, right? So this is where a shooter would normally shoot the ball with their right hand. Watch, he can't get to it. He crosses over, right? Crosses over. Can you guys see my mouse? I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. Bummer. You can't see my mouse. All right. So, but he's cross-handed. Here's the thing, guys, and this is where I tell you, those of you that listen to me, I've told you over and over again, we have not yet seen the best goalies in the sport of lacrosse. Okay? The best goalies in the sport of lacrosse are coming out of your living room, out of your backyard, because this is a language of lacrosse issue. So Byrne is crossed up here, backhanded, but see the stick is so vertical at this point. The only place for this ball to go is down. All right, the only place for the ball to go is down. So watch this. Okay, there's a bounce shot, goes between and bounces up. Right, but to me this is a savable shot. Okay, Byrne Lord is a phenomenal goalie, but this is a savable shot in my opinion. And this is a language of lacrosse issue, because I can guarantee you that in practice, Byrne Lord has not seen a lot of cross-handed bounce shots from side left. Okay, but that's part of this. That's part of the issue that we have teaching goalies. Now let me tell you something. So. For those of you guys that have Netflix, which is pretty much everybody, if you don't have Netflix, you might want to kind of check it out. There's a video about Rubik's Cubes, World Championships, about Rubik's Cube, and to be honest, it's a beautiful story, because the world champion of Rubik's Cube-dom is a kid with autism from California, and it's a fascinating story that basically. Here's this autistic kid who learns how to be, his parents finally get to him using numbers and a Rubik's Cube, and he becomes the best in the world at solving the Rubik's Cube at every level, like one-handed, 3x3, 5x5, 7x7, 9x9, all that stuff. So anyway, but there's a critical piece in the video where they talk about solving a Rubik's Cube is about learning algorithms. It's about learning combinations of moves that help take colors from different sides of the cube and then puts them together. Okay, so this is pattern recognition, and to be a great athlete is about having great pattern recognition. So when I watched this clip, and let me start, my camera's in the way of my when I watched this goal, okay, when the player gets to, I'm going to pause it here, when the player gets to this position, okay, cross-handed, stick is vertical, we know that follow through is going to bring that ball down. Okay, and so a goalie in this instant, okay, let me show you the video here. In this instant, a goalie in this instant is recognizing a pattern. That, oh, vertical stick, it's going to come low. That's the language of lacrosse, okay? So that's pattern recognition. And that's one of the things we're teaching our goalies, and one of the things that I encourage all of my coaches and all of my athletes to do is to work on creativity. Because if you don't work on creativity, if all you're working is on shots from 15 yards from right out front, you're teaching your goalie nouns, when this is probably like a preposition, right? Does that make sense? Or like a conjugated verb, all right? So it's really important to understand that's what we're doing here. So if your goalie got like hooped this year and got scored on a lot of times because they didn't understand the tactical nature of the sport, well, you got to look at that, right? And so now, what can you do in the off season? So when you know just where your goalie has been going wrong or has gone wrong, okay? So in that example I gave you, that's a technical issue, okay? That's an understanding of the language of lacrosse and then where that ball might be going so that then they can move in front of it. But also a lot of my goalies that I work with suffer from like it's some sort of psychological issue. But a lot of the goalies that I work with are in situations where the coaches are just not good at teaching things like team defense or team clearing. And so like goalies who are decent athletically, decent with a stick, are basically put into situations to fail, whether it's on defense with poor communication or if it's on teams that have like, no set clear, that the set clear is crappy, and only the long poles know what the hell's going on, things like that. Or for the girls, only the defense knows what's going on. When you're assessing your season and you go like, okay, listen, my team sucks when it comes to clearing, or my team sucks when it comes to communication. You can look back on that season and go like, well, what could we do in this situation? Okay. What could we as the goalie do to make that situation better? Maybe the goalie can start to communicate better, or maybe the goalie can start to initiate a conversation with the coaches and go, listen, what are we going to do about this? One of my goalies this year was on a team that had two young, like college age coaches who were both attackmen. Well, is it any surprise that their team was horrible on defensive communication? Probably not, right? But when I first started working with this goalie, they were gutted. Like the family was like, "Oh my God, my goalie thinks they suck, and the world's falling apart." And part of what I had to do was triage. You going like, "Listen, no, you're good at ball stopping. The stick skill's good. Just your team is letting you down in all these situations." So every month when we were getting on the phone, it was about like, oh, listen, how do we navigate this situation, right? How do we navigate working with these coaches on this team and getting you to the next level, right? And so, but you have to really break down your assessment of your goalie and go, all right, where are we physically? Where are we technically? Where are we tactically? How are we going to improve that, right? And then you run into resources like time, energy, and money, right? Right now, going into the fall with COVID, I think our lacrosse goalie is going to have a lot of time, right? Because I don't see kids playing basketball. I don't see people playing football or soccer. I just don't see it happening. And so what I recommend, here's my recommendations depending on where you fall into your assessment. Okay. So when you know where your goalie is wrong, like, so one of the issues, and a lot of my parents are not going to want to hear this. Okay. But we're going to have a bit of a motivation issue. Okay. For my like level one goalies who are like still like, they've got big dreams and they're going for it, I will tell you that even those goalies are suffering, going like, what the hell is going to happen? Right? It's all become so uncertain. And so it's very difficult, especially for a young person, to stay motivated in uncertain situations, right? As adults, we can tend to kind of take an attitude of like, listen, it's all going to work itself out. We're going to stay focused. Like, we're going to be the ones that work while everybody takes time. Like, I get it. But it's really difficult for a young athlete to stick with that for a long period of time. So if if your goalie is one of those tier one kids and they're having issues, that's one thing. If your goalie's like on the bubble and they're having those issues, I just want you to know there's no what's the word I'm looking for here? There's no not explanation. No wonder that they're going through that, right? Right. So sometimes at the end of a season, if things feel a little raw right now, I want you to know that, hey, listen, give it a little bit of time. That motivation might come back. But if there's no motivation right now, don't beat your goalie up silly saying like, hey, you got to get to the gym, things like that. If your goalie can stick to a routine that's really healthy, okay, one of the things about getting people out of depression is having some sort of routine, right? So, but if your goalie is kind of struggling a little bit, now may not be the time to go like, all right, let's do this, right? It might be the time to go like, hey, listen, let's just chill. Let's see where school starts, things like that, right? So if I'll share with you a crazy story. Last year with my athlete specific program, I was working with an athlete, not a goalie, lacrosse player though, who the parents shelled out basically $80,000 to send this kid for an extra year of high school. And I was so excited for this athlete because this athlete had a late growth spurt, basically grew 5 inches his senior year of high school, went from being kind of an insignificant athlete to now all of a sudden a kid who's like showing signs of like, listen, he's strong, he can run, he can do all this stuff. Like let's go, like let's try to get another year of high school because maybe that'll allow the college dream to happen. So family laid out 80 grand to get this athlete into a private school for lacrosse season, and then COVID hit. Okay. I share that story not to, for it to be like, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have 80 grand to throw at my kid for the season? But some families have that. But it's just this idea of like, every family is going to do what they feel is best for their athlete within their available resources. Okay. And so wherever you are on that spectrum of like wealth to not so wealth, it all comes down to like everybody's doing what they feel is best for their athlete at the time. And COVID threw a real weird wrench in all this. Okay. So depending on what your resources are, the recommendations I give you right now are ones you're going to kind of pick like a buffet. Either you're going to do certain things and not others, or you're going to do other things and not others, right? So here's the deal. What you can do, like in what I recommend, this is selfish, is I'd like to work with you, even if it's just for a month, okay? Because I can give you the best direction possible going into this offseason. But whether you work with me or someone like me, although that being said, a lot of the work that I do is fixing what people do with other coaches. One of the things I'll recommend to your athlete is to find a strength and conditioning coach, especially if your athlete's not going to be playing football or soccer or basketball. Even if they are, a lot of times the biggest bang for the buck comes from the physical ability side, the kind of giving Mother Nature a kick in the ass, pardon me, but and getting them stronger physically. Now, if your goalie can find, like, let's say it's available, finding another sport, maybe you're just trying to keep them happy and healthy and you want them socially around other people in cohorts, right? That's one thing that we're doing where I live. There's small cohorts, of soccer, but I'll be honest, one of my kids is very socially, active. And then when that hasn't been available, like soccer isn't really appealing because there's no social interaction. It's weird. But if you even finding another sport, me, is not as good as getting an athlete kind of falling in love with strength and conditioning. Okay. And that is something that with a little creativity at home, you can create a gym at home and you can get online and get some, and just be a little bit creative. But again, I know it's not as easy as being around, other kids and in that social environment. So it's not the easiest of answers, especially now. Okay. One thing I'll tell you though, is don't fear taking a break. Now, one thing that I run into now is people go like, well, we took a break in the spring. We didn't have any lacrosse. What do you mean take another break? Listen, if it all feels too hard, if it all feels too heavy, if it's too much of a stress point on a family, taking a break sometimes is the best idea. Right? I've got one family I work with. They have 6 kids in that family, right? 6 athletes in that family. It's a lot. And for this athlete, taking a break is probably one of the best things they could do because they did the best they could over the summer, but it was weird. They got some games in and it went fine. But the thing right now is that a lot of people are struggling from is that fear of missing out. Like, oh my God, if I'm not playing and I see this kid on Instagram and they're playing, I must be getting bad. That's not the case. We can all take a snapshot of our goalie in the backyard doing some cone drill post that on Instagram and everybody thinks you're the one working so hard. Okay. Um, and I want you to know that that don't fall for what you see on the internet, because I will tell you, like, so I've got some Olympic athletes that I work with, and this is kind of fun. They post Instagram videos, like, and so last year they were all posting Instagram videos of themselves working out. And so who are they all followed by? Well, they're all followed by their competitors, right? Like, they're all buddies. You know, there's Germans and Americans and Italians and Australians and things like that. And they're all posting their workouts. Well, then they all started posting videos of them doing like really weird stuff, right? And then sure enough, so one of my athletes is in the UK, and they start posting videos of them doing funny, like, not funny, but it was like, if you looked at it one way, you thought, damn, this guy's doing some weird stuff. Like, they were doing like balance stuff, agility stuff, like just weird stuff. But it was all like 10-second clips, you know, and it wasn't their normal workout. But they're posting it on Instagram. What do you think their competitors are doing? Going, oh, I should be doing that. You know, I should be standing one-legged on a ball trying to salt and pepper a chicken breast, like whatever. You know, so don't fall for that, okay? And don't let your goalie fall for that. Suzanne Ridinger writes, Amy wanted a gym membership at 12 years old, was excited when she could finally join at 14. Exactly. So not every athlete's going to want to do that, but if you can do that, if you can join the local Y, that's fine. Do it. All right. But sometimes taking a break can be the best thing for your goalie. And now, because it's so uncertain, sometimes just laying back a little bit. And, you know, I learned this, guys. Let me share this with you. I learned this the hard way after I stopped my Olympic training. Okay, so some of you guys might not know I was an Olympic athlete for the United States. In addition to my lacrosse background, being an All-American, Division I recruit, all that stuff. But when I stopped being an athlete, I really struggled because there was a lot of uncertainty. I didn't know what I was training for anymore. And finally, I worked with a strength and conditioning coach who said, listen, if you're not training for anything, just go to the gym and mess around. Like, because if you don't have a goal to work towards, it's really hard to be focused on something, right? And so if your athlete is struggling with that, don't fight it. Realize that, hey, with uncertainty, it makes it really difficult, okay? Now, for those of you, and this kind of ties in my last point here, you may have to get creative with your athlete, okay? You know, you may have to just get creative, and you may have to get creative understanding that that this is an awkward time, right? Know that your goalie will have a little bit of rust on them when they come back to lacrosse. If we come back to lacrosse in the spring, where I live right now, any sort of indoor stuff is looking really hard. Like all these soccer centers where we play indoors in the winter and when it's cold. Right now, there's no plan to open those. We might know a little bit more in a little bit, but it's weird. It's weird. So you may have to get creative. So listen, if you're deciding what club you should be playing for, I realized I don't have my banner set up here. Let me edit this and do that and post that and save that and post that. Boom. Hey. If you are in a situation where now you're considering like what club to play for, okay, know this, okay, there's three tiers of every goal of all the goalies that I work with, and your goalie is going to fall into one of these categories. One, you are the studs and the studettes of the world. You are already on a good club team, and maybe you're considering a move. Then there's the goalies who are on the bubbles within these club teams. And then the third tier is like you're looking for a place to play, okay? So I'll go back to the last segment where I talked about there's no politics in lacrosse, just athletes who aren't good enough to make the decision easy. Okay, fair enough, right? I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, you know, and I'll say this, listen, there's the exception. There's the dad or the mom whose son or daughter like sucks, but they're on the team, right? I want to throw that exception out the window because those are so rare. Okay, they're rare. But still, I don't want you to play a victim. right? If you're talking politics in your household, you're playing a victim, okay? Because let's say you are the starting goalie on your club team, something you have to be very careful about is an import, right? What's called an import, right? A goalie from outside your club all of a sudden is going to show up on your club next year. The question for you is your goalie going to be ready to play, right? I wrote about this in my book. And I hope if you don't have a copy of my book, I really hope you would just go out and get a copy. It's called An Athlete's Guide to Winning in Sports and Life. Every family should have this. And if you've got an aspiring athlete, you really need to have it. Okay. One of the things to talk about in there is the idea of like your athlete, if they're the best goalie on their team, that can be a dangerous position to be in. I had a conversation with a lacrosse parent down in Florida where their daughter is on a club team that just rolled over all their other teams this summer. And I was like, and they were happy that they won all the time. But as a goalie, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be on that team. Okay. I've got a goalie that they travel an insane amount every weekend. Again, this goes down to resources, but they fly every weekend to go play with a club team. Because one, their goalie is good enough where in their area, they just don't have any competition. They don't have any real good offense or things like that. So that the family is flying every weekend. It's a lot. It's a lot. I get it, but it's what people will do that, right? But the point is that I want you to know this. If your goalie is good, okay, if you know your goalie is recruitable, if you know your goalie is good athletically, you will be seen. And I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to apologize to Richard Rohr, who's in our group, because I basically jumped all over a comment he made in our Creating a Lacrosse Goalie of the Future group this week. And so I apologize to Richard publicly. But one of the things that he said that these parents are talking about that college coaches won't even look at a kid if they're wearing shin guards, and I jumped all over him. Okay, but I just want you to know this. First of all, that's not true. All right, one, that's not true. Secondly, I want you to know though that if your kid is good, they will be seen. All right. If you are standing on the sideline thinking that your goalie needs to be on a better club team because that's the only way they're going to get noticed, that's wrong. If your goalie is good on a mediocre team somewhere, you will be found. Now, you can't just sit back and go, hey, it's not, you're not just waiting. Okay. That's not the deal. You have to be proactive about where your goalie wants to go, where they want to play, what they want to do, right? Like what school they want to go to, all that stuff. You have to be proactive, right? This isn't lacrosse. I call it lacrosse Tinder, right? It's not like you're just going to go up on match.com and put your lacrosse profile and people are going to find you. No, you have to be proactive. But if your goalie is good, you will get noticed as long as you're not sitting in some closet somewhere. Okay. So I don't want you to think that, oh my God, you got to be on this other club to get seen. That's not the point, because you may not be on a very good club that's good for your goalie. Okay, so let's talk about that. And yes, who wrote that? Rob Shepard writes, a 6-4 loss is way better than a 12-2 win. Exactly. Okay. So my suggestion, I was on the phone with one of our Lacrosse Goalie University members this week about their goalie is making a switch to another club. And it was interesting because they're already on a really good club, but the decision was like, well, where should we go next year? Right. And so one of the things that I recommend first is if you can position your goalie on a good team that has a not so great offense, but maybe an okay defense, like maybe you got like one or two really good defenders and you're like, that's enough to have a really good clear and to communicate with, but your team's not going to spend a lot of time on offense. You're going to get more shots on goal. That to me is a really good situation because it gives your goalie the opportunity to make more saves. And if you can make more saves, you make more clears. And if you can make more clears, you have more opportunity to basically prove yourself as a goalie and also make an impact on your team. Because for that college coach that's sitting on a sideline in their fold-out chair with a little beer koozie and that maybe they've got that big wide brim hat, or maybe they've got no sunblock at all and they're just burning themselves to a crisp watching kids. If your goalie is getting lit up, but they're making saves here and there, that's going to stick out to a coach more than that goalie who's sitting on the back end of a top tier team and they're not seeing any saves, right? They look pretty, because a coach wants to know, like, can a goalie make a good stop here or there, right? Are they athletic enough to make a stop right on the crease? And this is true for the boys or the girls, right? And so here's the thing. Who's writing that? William writes, William, what'd you write? I 100% agree with this. Why take every good player to a better team knowing they won't have exposure because of older players playing first or all the time? Yeah, I'm going to go deeper here on this, but William, thank you for that. This is fantastic, right? So when your goalie is on a team that is not great, you have more opportunities. And I share this story a fair bit, but when I was a hockey goalie in junior high and into high school, and I remember going to a goalie camp and asking, Joe Britannia was his name. He was the goalie coach for the Boston Bruins. And I went to his goalie camp and it was I said, I wasn't a great hockey goalie at the time. And I asked, like, what team should I play on this year? What club team should I play on? And he was like, the worst team you can find. And I was like, why? He goes, because you're going to have more opportunities to improve. And what's true is that when you're on a team that is getting shelled, you know who's noticing? The other coach, the other goalie's parents. When I played in the independent school league, I'm getting shelled. I'm playing at Thayer Academy. We're playing Milton Academy. We're playing St. George's and Governor Dummer, and we're getting just shelled. But I'm standing out as a goalie. And I'm at the end of that game in the handshake line. I used to love it when the other coach would come up to me and say, "Great save," or "Great game." Like, how it feels like when you make a great save and the other team's coaches or the other team's parents go, "Nice save." That's the energy, right? Better than being on a team where it's like you're seeing 4 shots a half, you let in 2. To me, that's not great. So if you're a recruitable goalie already and you know it, sometimes leaving that top tier team and going to a lesser club team is going to give you more chance to improve. Okay. Let's say you're on the bubble and you're trying to, and you've got the ability to move, and, you might be able to move to another team and know that you're going to split, right? You're at least going to split and you're not stuck behind a kid and they're going to play that kid more than you, like whatever. But again, that's a thing where, like, you've just got to be a better goalie, right? But if you're just looking to play, again, getting on a team that you're going to see a lot of rubber is good. Now, outside of this, all right, I'm going to finish on this, okay? Outside of this, a question is like, well, should we go to a program that has a goalie coach? This is where I'm going to have to just kind of share as a selfish goalie coach, having like a lot of people I work with are working with goalie coaches and they're getting taught wrong. Okay. So I would say proceed with caution, but I think a better question to ask is like, okay, coach, head coach, how do practices run? What do you do in practice, right? What's the format for practice? Because if there is no format in practice, that's a sign. Now, if their practice is all like offense based, hey, that's good. Pad up your goalie, get him in practice, and just get shelled. That's fine. That's where I work with goalies across the country where they send me video from practice, and I'm coaching them from here. Okay, and they also have access to all of our database of coaching knowledge, right, in Lacrosse Goalie University, which is what no other coach can provide. So what I would say in this situation is like, a better question to ask is like, okay, what are we doing in practice? What's our plan for the clears? What are we doing for goalie defense communication? Right? If the coaches sound like they've got a plan, that may be a good team to go to. If they have no plan, well, But again, some of you I know are in programs where you don't have a choice and you're just trying to play, and that's that. So in that situation, making the best of that situation is like, okay, listen, make sure your goalie's padded up, make sure they're getting shelled in practice because they can work on things. Because if your goalie's not seeing enough shots in practice, then it doesn't matter what they see on game day. Because really, I'm more concerned about a goalie developing from practice time than game day time. I really don't care if your team's going to go out and they're going to go 6-0 this summer, right? I don't really care if you're going indoors and your team's stacked and your goalie's going to see like 4 shots a game. I really want your goalie to be seeing like 20 shots a half, right? And then because then you have more ability to improve. Right? You have more ability and like, okay, your defense can't catch the ball. Fine, whatever. Like, can your goalie lace a pass to a midfielder running down the sideline? Right? When for my girls, when that midfielder peels off of her defender and comes back at you, can you fire that ball into her stick with so much time that now she's got plenty of time to make a decision and bust a field? Right? Like, instead of seeing like 4 shots a half and then you get to sit on the bench the second half. That to me is a waste of time, energy, and money. Okay, so you've got to get the shots from somewhere. You've got to get the ability to develop somewhere. But let me just back up and say this: if your goalie is good and they're on a good team, I would consider, and I know this sucks because socially there's so much glue around the social aspect of being on a team, especially with kids in junior high and high school. I always you see these photos on Instagram. It's like, oh, I love my team. These kids have been together since they were like birthed and they're really coming together as a unit. I'm going like, shit, guys, like, your goalie probably needs to be on a worse team. Right. And that's a strategic development thing. I had a goalie last year, full disclosure, goalie last year off of Long Island. My advice to them was like, you got to get off that team because it's too good, right? But then the discussion was like, oh, but they've been friends for so long, it would crush them. They all go to school together. And I go, listen, what's the goal? Is the goal to become a Division I lacrosse goalie? In this case, this was the conversation. Or is it to have a good time with friends? Like as a parent, like I will look at you as a parent and go this: if you're rolling up with your cooler and it's wine o'clock inside that coffee tumbler, right? And you have all these other parent friends, right? And you just love getting together in the parking lot under your umbrella with your folding chair and your favorite bottle of wine. This is going to be a tough decision, right? But if it's about getting your goalie to the next level, then you start from there. But I hope that, I know a lot of people are resonating with what I just said. Some people are going like, who does that? Well, a lot of people do that, right? So, but at the end of the day, you just got to be comfortable with your decision. It's like, okay, Jimmy, Sally, we're going to stay with this team this year. Yeah, the coach sucks and practice is horrible, but man, you're playing with your friends. That's okay. Okay. So, and it's a fine, you can make a decision like that. So if you're listening to me right now in your car and you're listening like on the audio, you might be laughing a little bit, but just don't know that, live with that decision, right? But know that if I'm coaching you strictly from the point of making your goalie better, sometimes a lateral move to another team where you're going to get more shots, and even if you go into practice and you're getting shelled, that's a better situation than going to like a better team who says like, oh yeah, we have a goalie coach and he's this guy who graduated from college last year and he's going to work with our goalies. Well, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? What's practice like? What are we doing on the clears? What's the defensive communication calls going to be, right? What are we doing on slides, right? How many balls am my goalie going to, like, I want my goalie shelled respectfully in practice. Let's put it that way. And maybe that's a good sentence for everybody to adopt. I want my goalie to be shelled respectfully in practice. I am going to prepare my goalie to come to practice and be protected enough to survive that shelling, but I want them to be shelled respectfully in practice so that my goalie is getting better. Because if my goalie is going to practice and they're standing with their stick upside down, like with their legs crossed on one end of the field, while the coach is running, a fast break drill on the other end, it's probably not the best situation to be in. Okay, I don't care if you're on like Team 91 out of Long Island, or if you're from like East Bum, from like the left coast of Nebraska. I don't care. Okay, right? I just want what's best for my goalie in this situation, and that's what you got to look for. So listen, everybody, we've had like record numbers today. This is amazing. So I didn't even get to talk about what my thoughts on the PLL championship was like. I thought the defense of the Chaos in that fourth quarter just fell apart. Because Riordan got scored on, I think 6 or 7 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times within like 6 yards, right? And some were even slam dunks. So I thought that was a disappointment. But I'm proud that I'm psyched for the Whip Snakes. I interviewed Jim Stagnita last year. Eric B writes, to back up your goalie of the future prediction, Blaze switched hands to try and make a save. Okay, Eric, which one are you talking about in the playoff? Because I talked about that last week, or did you see another one in the final? Because I didn't see it. I just watched the highlights. But thank you. But yes, the Lacrosse Goalie of the future will switch hands. I'm going to do more of this, talking about that stuff. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on some of my concepts. I'm just going to kind of lay it all out there. I'm sick of kind of just, kind of keeping it quiet. But yeah, it was awesome, wasn't it? Like, we're going to see it. We got a bigger. If you missed that, for those of you guys that are wonder what I'm talking about, Blaze Riordan of the Chaos in one of the playoffs games switched hands as he slid across to make a save, and I talked about that in last week's Lacrosse Goalie Weekly Q&A. All right, so if you want to just scroll through the group and see that, it's there. But we're going to go into more detail on that in the future. So Eric B, thank you for letting me know. That's awesome. That's totally cool. I love it. I love it. So listen, wherever you guys are in the world, listen, send me a message. Let me know what's going on with school for you, right? Are you like COVID free? Are you starting right away? Is football playing? What are you thinking? I think right now for most of us, we're all just hoping that come spring, we're all going to be playing again. For me in Canada, spring starts in like June, but I know back in Boston and for all my goalies on the East Coast, there's a lot of hungry goalies just waiting to play. Okay. So don't stress, be positive, keep your goalie happy, do what you can. Know that your goalie is not going to fall apart and be anywhere. And know that pretty much everybody's in the same boat, even if your goalie is like in Maryland, and you're not in Maryland. If you're in Massachusetts, for instance, don't stress it. Okay. So, all right, guys, listen. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, Eric B. Thank you for those comments. I really appreciate that. Benjamin Burr, Salazar, good to see you. Amy Ridinger, good to see you. Amy, when are we getting on the phone? Okay. Stephanie Sevilla. Hey, Stephanie, were you coming into Lacrosse Goalie University or not? Because I had another goalie who joined right when you were joining, but I don't think it was you. But I was expecting you. So, but really looking forward to working with your goalies. And like I said, listen, guys, even if I work with your goalie just for 1 month, we do an audit, we get on the phone like once. I can steer you in the right direction, especially going in this fall. And then maybe we work together again when lacrosse starts back up for you. But if you've got some footage of your goalie, or even if you can just get your goalie in the backyard, I can give you a full assessment on what to do with your goalie going into this fall. So there's no question asked. Okay. Yeah, so I'd be happy to do that. So if that's for you, check out lacrossegoalietips.com/coaching, right? And we can get you going. All right. So I'd be happy to. All right, everybody, take care. And I'll talk to you soon. Cheers. Bye. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for watching or listening wherever you are in the world. Do me a favor. Whatever you're watching on,
be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave me a like, leave me a comment. That always helps me, and it gives a lot of support to the channel. It also lets me know a little bit more about you. You can also reach out via email, coachedwards@lacrossegoalietips.com. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.